USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
My grandfather served in the British Navy in World War I, and my father was an engineering officer in the British Merchant Marines during World War II. And then when the war ended, he came to this country. He and my mother got married, and his first job was scraping the barnacles off the hulls of ships at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And they saw my father's work ethic, and he wound up working for the U.S. Navy Department. And he worked his way up to head of budgeting and procurement, U.S. Military Sea Lift Command, U.S. Navy. And our whole life was the U.S. Navy. Sitting at the dinner table, and my father looked at me and said, he says, well, what are you going to do? You're going to graduate from high school. And my mother had taken me down. I asked her to take me to see the recruiter. My dad hadn't known that. And he says, well, what are you going to do? And I looked at my mother, and she says, go ahead. And I said, well, I went to see the recruiter. I want to join the Navy. And my father's reaction was, yes. So I had his approval.
On July 30th, 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt amended and signed Public Law 689, which had established the Women's Reserve, unofficially known as WAVES, earlier in 1938. During World War II, 90,000 female officers and enlisted reservists were stationed at U.S. shore commands as well as overseas. WAVES served as air traffic controllers, artists, cryptologists, hospital corpsmen, linguists, and weather specialists. Through the direct contributions of over 350,000 women who served during World War II, military and congressional leaders were convinced that women should be allowed to serve not only during times of war, but also during times of peace. In July 1948, the Women's Armed Service Act allowed for the first women to be sworn in for regular active duty. The WAVES were later disestablished in 1972. Today, women in the Navy continue the WAVES legacy through their service throughout the fleet.
In 1942, when the WAVES first started, their boot camp was at Hunter College. And then as it grew, they moved the training to Bainbridge, Maryland. And the base is now gone, and it's kind of sad because I know a number of other women who were WAVES. And for all of us, it's like Bainbridge was very important to us. It was the beginning of a new life, and it changed all of our lives. That first week, I think we were all numb. It was an incredible experience, being barked at, shouted orders to. This was not like the comfortable life that I had at home. The new barracks, Hunter Hall, was built when I was there, and we were the first company to move in. And when my parents came down to visit, we were already in Hunter Hall. It was a gorgeous, brand new building, really nice, like a college dorm. It was beautiful. My mother's first reaction was, she looked at me and she goes, oh my God, look at the red lipstick. That was one thing in boot camp. Ladies wore red lipstick. So it was part of our uniform. So you wore red lipstick all the time. It was kind of funny. And to this day, I don't wear red lipstick. For us, the Tet Offensive was the height of the Vietnam War. I was a personnelman. I worked for the commanding officer. Charleston, South Carolina, Naval Hospital. I mean, the hospital never slept, 24/7, never stopped. There were wounded in and out all the time. There were so few of us on the base of WAVES. There were, I don't think, maybe there were 100 of us. And this is a huge base. It was one of the largest in the country. And they had no place else to put us but in this building that was actually part of the hospital. So we saw this every single day. I do remember the first time that I saw a body bag, and it was like, I didn't know what it was. I was 18 years old. I had never seen anything like that before. The first patient that I saw who'd come back from Vietnam, he'd lost part of his leg in Vietnam, and I was shocked because I'd never seen anything like this before. And it got so that it became a common occurrence, and it wasn't shocking anymore because you saw it every day and you had to learn to live with it. This is from my book, Name, Rank, and Serial Number. So there were no mothers with cool washcloths to ease the suffering. There were military doctors and nurses, corps waifs, corpsmen, and those of us brave enough to visit the wounded. There lived the horrors of war, the end results of battle and bravery that civilians can't and will never understand. There lived loneliness, suffering, pain, and the ultimate sacrifice. The morgue never had a day off. Being able to go over and talk to the wounded and make them feel comfortable, and they'd ask you, will you come back and visit me again? Yes. And it was, I won't ever forget that. I will not forget going over to visit them and knowing that by just being there, maybe I helped to make somebody's day a little better. And afterwards, though, I never told anyone that I had been in the military. Never spoke about it. The enlistment for a woman at the time was 3 years. And when I got home from the Navy, when I first got home, I had a really tough time adjusting. The friends that I grew up with, I was different, very, very different than them. I missed the camaraderie that we had on the base. The self-discipline was different. It was a couple of months, it was April. I got out at the end of January, and April, I was in this car accident, and no one ever expected me to survive. And my parents were told, you need to get the family together, she's not going to make it. I spent several years in and out of hospitals, having facial reconstruction. I had other injuries that they had to deal with. I got married, and because of the injuries that I had in that car accident, the doctors weren't too sure that I would ever have children. And I did manage to get pregnant, but my doctors were concerned and they thought it might be the best that I stay home during my pregnancy because I was high risk. I was a stay-at-home mom until I went to college. So in 1987, I decided I needed more in my life. I went out to the Eastern Campus and registered for classes and wound up in the honors program with a full honors scholarship. I went to Southampton College, and I also had full scholarship there, honors. And then I went to CW Post to Masters in English, and they started the MFA in English and Writing program at Southampton College. And I went out there and I applied for several scholarships from other places, and I wound up getting scholarship money for that and in the honors program. And I went on to get my graduate degree, and the college hired me. I teach English and writing, but writing is really my specialty, and they usually have me teaching writing classes or freshman English classes. I've taught literature as well. I took a program at Suffolk Community College for faculty, and you take a test, and it kind of like helps you to see who you are. And there's a workshop that went along with it, and my results were coming out differently than everybody else's in the room. And the two people that were running it didn't understand why mine were so different. And they were all sitting there looking at me, waiting for an answer. I said, it may have something to do with the fact that I served in the Navy during the Vietnam War. And they were like absolutely shocked. They couldn't believe it. So the two people who were running it says, you need to go over to campus activities, and they want to start a veterans club on the campus. And I thought to myself, cool, I'd like to be part of that. So I went over, and they were thrilled. They said, yes, yes, yes. We didn't know that you're a veteran. I said, you know now. So that's when the Student Veterans Association was started.
Freedom is not free, so thank you. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you for the risks and the sacrifices you have made in serving our nation.
Not a day goes by that I'm not reminded of the sacrifices that you have made, both here and abroad.
The years that I have spent at Suffolk Community College working with the veterans, I think is one of my fondest. I love my students. I love teaching. But the time that I spent with the Student Veterans Association, and some of them still keep in touch with me. I'm proud of it, and I'm so proud of them. Some of them that came into the organization struggling, maybe severe PTSD, but we did become a family, more or less, you can say. And it's like, I'm so proud of what they've accomplished. And well, my son was also in the military at that time too, so it was real special to me to be part of that group. Now I'm active with the Dwyer team. They wanted to have a wellness day for women veterans only, because women veterans tend to be overlooked. It was awesome. They had us there for the whole day. It was just after that that the Dwyer team put together the women veterans peer team. As the group grew, it was really awesome because there were more and more women veterans that were, hey, I want to be part of this. And age doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what branch you served in or when you served. Doesn't make any difference. Doesn't matter what your job was. And it's like, you were in the military. You signed on that line just like everybody else did. You took that same oath that everybody else did. And it's really cool getting together with them. This says, not all women wore love beads. And I actually got this from the Vietnam Women's Memorial Foundation.